Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Today we have our Ernst Williams back with us on this channel, and we're going to be discussing about Saturn-Moon Conjunction. And I welcome Ernst. Namaste.
Hi there, Benita. Really great to see you again. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
You bet. Yeah, so I guess we decided we wanted to talk about Saturn-Moon.
Yeah.
And so, there's no hiding it, but that's a really heavy conjunction. It's really what I kind of consider the hardest conjunction you can have in your chart. So if a person has it, it's the thing they really have to work out the most. Once it's worked out, everything in life's going to get better. But there's so many dynamics to it. We'll try to get in the most important ones. Okay. Did you have any questions to start? You want me just to jump into it?
Yeah, you can jump in. Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing with Saturn Moon is that when you see that conjunction, the person's just not going to get their needs met.
Right.
In their early life, especially. You just know right away they're not going to get their needs met.
Yeah.
And that's really the story of their lives until they figure it out. Okay. Once they figure it out, great. But basically, the first conclusion is you're not getting your needs met. You didn't get your needs met. And you actually can see how many degrees there are between the moon and Saturn. And for every degree, you can go 1 year of age. And that'll be a time where there was some big episode of not getting their needs met or some big tragedy of some sort, okay? Not necessarily the only one, but there should be something significant. So for instance, I had, or before I get into that, let me also mention, if you see the Saturn-Moon conjunction and it's also in a Dashtana, so the 6th, 8th, or 12th, then not only does a person not get their needs met, there's often some real tragic experience involved with it as well. Basically, Dashtana means bad place, okay? So if you're in a bad place not getting your needs met, it's a lot worse than being in a good place not getting your needs met, right? So when you see those Dashtanas, you really want to be in alert. So one client I had, they had the sun or the Saturn moon were 1.5 degrees apart and in the 12th house. And so when they were 1.5 years old, they were kidnapped and sexually abused. And that's the heaviest Saturn moon I've seen, So again, the point I want to make, 1.5 degrees, 1.5 years. So always watch for that. The closer the conjunction, the earlier the trauma is, and usually oftentimes that person doesn't even remember it anymore, okay? So you can see some really heavy stuff with that. But before we get into, all the grimness of it, I want to just talk about some positive things first, okay? In the sense of what's going to help you with that. First of all, one of the things that, well, I guess first of all, I want to be a little more difficult. One of the things that makes a Saturn-Moon conjunction so hard is Saturn stars any planet he's with.
Right.
Which means that planet's going to struggle to get fulfilled. The moon is your needs, fulfilling your needs. With Saturn, that gets starved, okay? Now, what makes a Saturn-Moon conjunction really tough is that it's a double whammy in that the moon is a natural friend to Saturn. And when you're joined, a natural enemy, to Saturn. So a planet, when it's joined with the natural enemy, gets starved as well. So moon is starving Saturn right back. So you get a double starvation theme on a level that you really feel it because it's the moon, okay? So the best thing to help with this, to show that's going to be a lot less difficult for the person, is if you can get the conjunction happening in the sign that is a friend to both of them. Okay, so Mercury is a friend to the moon, and Mercury is a friend to Saturn. So if you see this in Gemini or Virgo, there's a big buffer there. It's not going to be as bad as if you see it in Aries or Scorpio, for instance, okay? Where one of them's debilitated, right?
Right.
And then the other one, and Saturn's in a natural enemy sign, which makes it worse. So if you have it in Gemini, Virgo, better off. Then if you have it in Taurus, that's nice too, because now the moon's in Mula Trikona or exaltation, right?
Mhm.
And Saturn is in a natural friend sign, so it gets delighted. They both get some protection, okay? If you see it in Libra, then Saturn's exalted, but the moon doesn't get any benefit. So Saturn's not causing as much trouble, but the moon is still hurt really bad, okay? If you see it in Capricorn or Aquarius, the moon's still getting hurt bad, but Saturn gets some help, okay?
Mhm.
So really the best places for this is Gemini, Virgo, Taurus, okay?
Okay.
Big trouble. In Leo, Sagittarius, or sorry, in Leo, not Sagittarius, of course, but in Leo, the moon's getting helped by the sun, but Saturn's getting hurt by the sun. So not great there either. Okay.
Right.
So keep that in mind when you see it. So basically the most difficult places are in the signs of Mars.
Mhm.
It is the toughest place. And following that, believe it or not, in the signs of Jupiter.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, because that's Jupiter's a neutral to both of them, so it doesn't help either one. Okay. And then after that, I'd say probably Leo is about as difficult as Sagittarius, okay? So lots of times when we see this, it's nice. That one I told you about had the Saturn moon in the 12th house at 1.5 degrees in Aries.
Oh.
So it's debilitated, it's in a Dhisthana. It's like the most difficult type of Saturn moon conjunction you're gonna find, okay?
Mhm.
So there's no doubt about it. When you've got that Saturn moon, there's this karmic repercussion of you're not getting your needs met, okay? And you don't get your needs met at a time where you have no will, no volition, no understanding, basically in your childhood, okay? Through something. That's no fun. Now, what matters is after childhood. What matters is how long is the person going to continue to not get their needs met, right?
Right.
Because as we grow up, we can mature through that. The problem is when we don't get our needs met on such a basic level, on such a deep, painful way, we're set up and programmed to operate in a way that we continue to not get our needs met. Okay? Like let's say you have a parent who doesn't meet your needs. You want that parent to meet your needs because it's your parent, right?
Mhm.
A parent, someone else's parent who can fulfill your needs won't be the same, okay?
Right.
It has to be your parent, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but your parents didn't fulfill your needs if you have a Saturn moon, one or both, because however they were, they just couldn't.
Yeah. Mhm.
So you want a person who couldn't fulfill your needs to be the one to fill it. Your best friend's mom who can fulfill your needs, that's nice and everything, but you're not that, it doesn't really do it, right?
Right.
You see the impossible situation that we happen. So what literally happens with this conjunction, it's because when we think of Saturn moon, we go, oh, poor moon, poor moon, poor moon.
Mhm.
But that's only half the problem, okay? The poor moon is the part where Saturn says, oh yeah, you're not getting your needs met, okay?
Right.
But then the other half of the equation is the moon Saturn, because the moon is a natural enemy to Saturn.
Mhm.
So it's starving Saturn. So now Saturn becomes a huge troublemaker, not because he's Saturn, because he's starved by the moon. Okay. And so where normally he would do his job, he doesn't. So basically, what is Saturn's job, right? Saturn's job is to sit on the toilet and poop. Okay.
Mm.
Right? Saturn rules excretion. He rules junk. He rules the trash. He rules the things that aren't good for you, that are toxic if you keep them. If you keep in your house gets dirty and littered. If you
Right.
keep in your body, you die. Okay. So he's what's toxic, basically. He's not good for us anymore. Maybe he was good at some point, but not anymore. Once it becomes Saturn, it's time to let it go.
Mhm.
But the moon's job is to say, hey, this is what I need.
Right.
So the moon, when it's with Saturn, is saying, hey, I need this.
Mm.
And Saturn's like, wait, I'm toxic, I'm trash. Flush me, please. The moon's like, nope, I need this. So what happens with the moon Saturn is the person holds on to and keeps the very things that hurt them. And they're literally attracted and drawn to the very things that hurt them. And the good thing over here that will help them, they don't even see it. or if they see it's like, I'm not attracted to it, I don't want it. Okay. They literally want the thing that's not going to help them to be the thing to help them.
Yeah.
Or Saturn also rules lots of good things that don't belong to you.
Mhm.
Okay. So you can have somebody can have a great husband. So he's a great husband, but he's not your husband. And that's also a Saturn thing. So the moon Saturn wants that great husband,
Mhm.
not this great husband who's unmarried, who could be a great husband. Okay.
Mhm.
So it always wants what it is not his, or it wants what's bad for it.
Right. Mhm. Oh, sorry, it froze for a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It froze a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
so the difficulty as far as what we have to do, because with Saturn, we don't have to do anything, just let go. So we have to actually work more on the moon Saturn than the Saturn moon.
Okay. Mhm.
The Saturn moon gets better over time. That's how Saturn gets better. You go to sleep, it's better in the morning. You go away for 10 years and it's better 10 years later.
Right.
Saturn gets better when you just forget about it and go do something else. It just, if you try to fix Saturn by working on it, it don't work. Saturn just takes time.
Mhm.
Okay. The problem is the moon's aspecting Saturn, and that's the part the person actually can work on more conscientiously. Okay. Because that's based on how they think something's going to work.
Mhm.
They think that the thing that they don't have, the thing that's not good for them, is going to be the thing that's going to feed them. And it's not. So as soon as they learn that, realize, wow, I'm in the habit of thinking the thing I don't have is what will make me happy. And then I have my whole life here that I'm not letting making me happy. So as soon as they realize that, they can become more happy. Okay.
Right.
And as soon as they learn to let go, because one of the things that happens with the moon Saturn is that because they grew up in a time without their needs getting met, they experience life as there being a lot of lack in life.
Right.
Because in their life, there was a lot of lack.
Mhm.
Okay. So now their conscience believes there's a lot of lack. Therefore, I have to hold on to what I can.
Right. Yeah. Out of fear.
Out of fear. Yeah. Out of the fear that if I let go of this, I have nothing.
Mhm.
So hold on to this toxic job, this toxic person, this toxic whatever,
Mhm.
because if I let go and flush it because it's toxic, I'll have nothing. And I'd rather eat my own poop than have nothing.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's that extreme level of lack is what can be experienced. So it's really important for the person to realize that while yes, they had an experience of huge lack, of huge not having their needs met, that doesn't have to continue because now they're adults. Now they can make choices. Now they can think for themselves. But if they hold on to things out of fear that there's nothing else, there won't be anything else.
Right.
And that we only have two hands. When we hold on to something, we don't get anything new.
Right.
And we have to let go first before new stuff comes in. It's one of the biggest lessons I have to learn. It's really like eating, right? Until you go to the bathroom, you don't get to eat more food. Okay.
Right.
And it's the very same thing. You know, Saturn is really so much about just letting go of the things and, you know, letting it go. And if a person can do that, then their life becomes open to where they can receive things and have options come in that are more nourishing for them. Okay.
So when we mention letting go of things that they're holding out of fear, letting go.
Fear of lack, fear that if I don't have this, I have nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a really interesting thing. You know, I've seen a lot of people be given opportunities in life. Okay, they're in bad situations, they're not in a great life, and they get an opportunity in life. But the chance of the opportunity succeeding is never high in this world, right? There's always 100 possibilities of failure.
Right.
Okay? Lots of times the Saturn moon, when that opportunity comes, will not want to let go what little they have because they just don't, they haven't had the experience of things working positively. So why would they let go of the little they have, you see? So it really takes an act of bravery to let go of what is not completely fulfilling and take risks to allow for something more fulfilling to come in. It is an act of surrender, very much an act of surrender, and very much an act of bravery as well. But I think it's more an act of surrender almost, just to let go to what they're holding on to. And you'll see people, if any person in a fearful experience, like say, an accident happens, right? Where they have to let go of what they're holding on to, or else they're going to get pulled down into the water, right? And, but they don't want to let go, but they have to. So it's that same kind of feeling where a person has to let go in order to get into a good place. So what the people have to remember is they just have to really have an act of faith, act of surrender, and, take the risk. And then they have to start in little ways because, see, again, they haven't had the experiences that make their insides willing to let go. Okay.
Right. So is it more coming out of like lack or low self-esteem and going towards more self-trust?
There's a lot of, with that conjunction, there's this poor self-image that accompanies with it, where when the person sees themselves, they don't see themselves as deserving, or able. They just, because that's what they've been programmed. That's what they've experienced. They've experienced this lack because they must not deserve more than that. Okay. And so, yes, there is a self-image part behind it. But how I see it is that ultimately, the reality is we live in a world of lack. In the natural world out there in nature, in mammals, only 10% of mammals live long enough to procreate, make it to sexual maturity, 10%. And that's a serious world of lack we live in. And if you think about it, we've lived in all kinds of animal bodies throughout our sojourns through here, right?
Right.
Our memories are littered, let's say, with these experiences of extreme lack. So when we're born as humans, we have experiences, we have memories of extreme lack. And it's these memories of extreme lack that cause the world to be a selfish place. Because animal kingdom, it's selfish. Because they're in a world of lack, and the strongest has to live. So the human world is no different. It's a world of lack. There is a shortage of good jobs. There's a shortage of great girls. There's a shortage of good husbands. There's a shortage of great places to live. I mean, there's a shortage of countries that you want to be born in,
Right.
So it's like we live in this huge world of lack. And the Saturn moon person has experienced some serious lack on a very important basic human level that's extremely necessary to a natural development. They've experienced it. So they know what that lack is, and they don't really necessarily believe there's more for them. Okay. And the way they'll go about it will actually push everything away in the end. So the beautiful thing about being human, though, compared to those animals out there, is that humans can escape the world of lack by developing spiritual development. Because we have access to a world that's not the mere physical world. So while the external world is always going to be a world of lack, the human world, the inner world, the world that we're really here to develop is unlimited.
Right.
So ultimately, the only way to overcome a consciousness of lack is through developing a divine consciousness. Okay, now it doesn't matter, any time you have a starved planet in your chart, which is any planets that are together with, you know, two enemies together is always starved. But when you have a starved planet, there's always a conscious of lack on it, just like the Saturn moon. Just the Saturn moon is the most heavy one, because it has to do with a lack that was really needed for a normal upbringing, but still, through developing divine consciousness, then the human spirit has the capacity to overcome all lack. And literally not just in an inner way, through a way of manifestation. So that you can manifest things happening. So if you see, take a selfish person and an unselfish person, for instance, okay? A selfish person feels huge lack and they feel they have to get what they can when they can get it. And they have to hold on to what they hold on to. So someone comes up in trouble, says, gosh, I'm really in trouble. If I need $500 or I'm screwed, okay? The selfish person will go, well, I have 500, but that's all I got. If I give it to you, I'm screwed, so they don't give it to them, okay? And it's not because they are mean, it's just like, wow, how am I going to survive? But if a person develops a more divine consciousness, they know they have the power within them to get $500 if they need it tomorrow. Okay, so they give the person $500. That's the reason they're able to give it, because they know they can do that. Okay, so it's like anything else. Anything we have a lack in, whether there's lack of luck, a lack of resources, a lack of energy, we don't want to give that up if we have a lack of it. But if we can tap into our divine consciousness, we can always find a means, always find a way. And that's how we overcome that lack of consciousness. And we all suffer from it. And we're all here to develop more of that divine consciousness, okay? Because it's really impoverished consciousness and divine consciousness, if you think about it, right? So with the Saturn moon, it's a very tough one, but it's a very, very urgent one, okay? And half of the work gets taken care of without anyone doing anything, just through time. That's the Saturn moon part. The moon Saturn part, which is, okay, I'm not going to say I need that. I'm going to be open and take the best option. Okay, that's another difficulty they have. See, the moon is always about taking the best option available.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you say moon Saturn versus Saturn moon, how would we make the difference?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Saturn is hurting the moon, but because it's Saturn.
Okay.
And the moon is hurting Saturn because it's an enemy to Saturn.
Okay.
So both planets are not functioning the way they need to, okay?
Right.
The moon, Saturn's not functioning right because instead of saying, oh, I don't need that, that's not good for me, or that's not mine and I don't want it, the moon's like, you need that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Real simple.
Right.
The Saturn moon, what it's doing is it didn't fulfill the person's need to a serious level. Mm-hmm. And as a result, there's a trauma in the person now. Okay. Anytime you see a Saturn conjunction to any planet, that planet gets traumatized. Right. Because of a lack. Okay. So now we've got a trauma. What heals, what trauma is, it happens on a physical level. Mm-hmm. Where every cell in the body has a negative memory attached to something. Right. Okay. So with Saturn moon, every cell of the body has a negative memory attached to having critical needs met. Okay. Because the moon is real simple. It needs its critical needs met. The basic needs that's why it's exalted in Taurus. Okay. It's like if you don't have this, you die. You cannot be healthy. You will not want to be alive if you don't have these moon needs met, okay? So when some of those needs, even one of those needs aren't met, it creates a huge trauma. So every cell is traumatized. Trauma heals over time. Mm-hmm. because over time, we get other experiences that start to retrain, or that those experiences need to build up until the body, the cellular memory is as great or greater as those negative traumas. Okay. And that takes time. But not only does it take time, it's important that the person puts himself into the right place to allow for those experiences.
Right.
If a person plays the Saturn-Moon conjunction wrong, they get more traumatic experiences and then they never catch up. Okay. But if they can manage it to where they start getting experiences that are positive, then their cellular memory rebuilds, and it has to happen slowly. Okay, a little at a time. It's literally like getting into a cold pool, a little at a time. Okay, and you don't get to jump into it and get it over with all of a sudden. It doesn't work. They'll have a heart attack. So with the Saturn Moon person, if too much good comes too fast, they tend to shut down.
Right.
Because they can't handle it. It's like, wait, okay, I don't trust this, this doesn't feel right. So it has to be just enough to start retraining them, okay? It's like if you pick up a traumatized dog, every time you look at it, it shakes. Like you find a dog out in the street and it's shaking, it's obviously been abused. You don't just jump on that dog and love it and kiss it and hug it and take it to bed with you and snuggle with it all night long, right? What you do is you just, from 10 feet away, you give him a little piece of food, right?
Right.
And you walk back 10 feet and then he comes and gets the food. So literally the Saturn Moon needs to be retrained with healthy human moments. And so it's important that the person puts themselves in healthy situations so they can have those. And the thing that keeps them from doing that is not letting go of the negatives, with the Moon Saturn saying, oh, I need the very thing that's going to hurt me.
Right.
Okay. They literally have to just realize that I'm programmed to want my needs to get met from what can't give them met. Okay. Because again, going back to a parent, it's so often a parent that causes the trauma. Okay. That parent did the best they could based on what they are.
Right.
If they were a psycho mad person, they couldn't have loved you more, okay?
Right.
They just couldn't have. But you want them because they're your parent. And so after that, because they're a psycho madman, you want love from a psycho mad person. Love from a healthy person, now I'm not interested. So a person with Saturn Moon has to realize they literally are drawn to wanting the fulfillment and wanting their needs to get met from the very types that can't provide it.
Because that's what they're familiar with from the childhood, right? So it's almost like being with people who are unavailable, or like they're having that abandonment.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're familiar with that energies, or that, and then they are not able to recognize.
Well, it is
I think it froze again for a bit.
Yeah. It is the familiarity.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it is the familiarity. It is the familiarity, but it's also, see, we as humans, as mammals, we want the love of our parents more than anything else.
Yeah.
As a child, the love of our parents is the love of God.
Yes.
See, the parents are the ninth house.
Yes.
That's the house, that's the spiritual house, that's the God house in a way,
Right.
That's the being we want to love us. As children, it's our parents, because they're the gods in our life, right?
Yes.
Because they're responsible for our survival, therefore they're the gods.
Yes.
Okay. So we want their love. That's the most important love to us. So later on in life, we want people like them to love us. But if our parents couldn't love us on some levels, we seek out people who have that same issue and want them to love us. Those are the ones we're most attracted to, because that's the love we want. We're trying to get the love of our parents from from that person who's like our parents. And there has to come a point in time when we realize, I'm just not going to get it.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get that kind of love, that flavor. Your parents loved you in different ways, but I'm not going to get that flavor of love from that person. So give it up. But I can get that flavor of love from God, and I can get that flavor of love from the divine. And then the person has to forgive their parent for not giving it to them. Until they can fully forgive them or whoever traumatized them for not giving them the love, they're going to still secretly be seeking it from the same types of people dressed in different clothing.
Right.
And there'll be these subtleties to it. It's like, they're like, oh, they're not like my mom at all. They're not like my dad at all. But when you brush away things, the core will be the same. And the core of that person will be the same as that person who didn't fulfill their needs. So they have to realize that, again, not tap into the lack of the world, which means that the parents being the divinities, but to tap into the divine and making the divine the divinity. And in making the divine the divinity, we make the whole world the divinity. Oh, I can get that love from this person. Oh, I've been getting that love from this person. I just didn't notice it because I needed that love from this person who wouldn't ever give it to me. And then you realize, oh, I can have it. This person's I've been getting this love from the world my whole life, but I never saw it. We all do that with starved planets, okay? But the Saturn moon starvation is the strongest. It's like the foundation of all starvation. So this is really heavy for the Saturn moon. And the other thing that happens that's really important is that on another level of Saturn being starving, hurting the moon, is the moon is the planet we adapt to life with. Okay, so we're born here to achieve something, to live a certain way, but the world's not an ideal place. Okay, so we have to adapt to the world and live our ideal state of being as an adaptation that works in this world. Okay? See, the sun is who we are and the light we want to shine. But the world doesn't welcome anyone's sun. We have to adapt through the moon, okay? So, because the moon that can be in the world, and the world can handle the moon. The sun is too much, it's a malefic, right? So the moon is gentle. So the moon needs to adapt. So yeah, it's not exactly how I wanted, how I planned, but I can adapt here.
Right.
Okay. I can work with this. And what do we adapt to? We adapt to the best option available. See, the moon is designed to adapt to the best option available. That's why in history, when one culture invades another culture, within a few years, they're living together and having kids together.
Right.
The majority of them, they've adapted to, my best life is going to be marrying that Viking guy who killed my brother. You know what I mean? That's my best possible option. And we adapt to our best possible option. The beautiful thing about the moon is not only does it adapt to its best possible option, it learns to be happy and fulfilled there.
Yes.
And the capacity of the moon to do this is tremendous. That's why there have been people in concentration camps who flourish there and were happy. These are very few people who can adapt to that level. But it is possible to adapt to any and all situations and be happy there. It depends on our moon and our other planets. But the moon is like a core to this, okay? Because it's the planet of adaptation. Now, when Saturn's with the moon had this huge trauma from a lack of needs getting met. What is trauma for? Trauma or stress, let's call it stress. Stress is what helps us adapt, right?
Right.
Okay, without stress, there's no adaptation, which means without stress, there's no growth.
Right.
We need stress.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're designed to have an element of stress, an element of things not working, so we can grow, adapt, and change through our moon. The Saturn moon person, though, has had a stress that was so great, it was never became a trauma.
Right.
It was a stress greater than the organism was ever designed to handle. Like one person I know whose mom, on the way home from her hospital, dropped her off at her sister's house and left the country. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It's like at birth, we're not designed to have that level of stress of a parent just disappearing on us right after birth.
Right.
Or even in the first year, So the Saturn Moon person has had a level of stress that as humans, we're not designed to adapt to. It's too much.
Yes.
So they have a trauma now.
Right.
And until that trauma gets healed, they can't adapt to other things.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because there's too much backlog. You understand?
Yeah.
They're too strained to adapt to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in life requires an adaptation because nothing's perfect.
Right.
So what happens with the Saturn Moon person, they're not able to adapt and they either fall apart or leave or go away or say no to things or don't let things in, because nothing's perfect enough. And they'll always find a reason not to do it because it's hard for them to adapt. And that means it's hard for them to take the best possible option. And so lots of times they deny themselves everything because it's hard to take the best possible option.
Right.
Okay? Now, the good thing is that, like I said, what Saturn's doing to the moon gets better over time. Okay? Which means over time, their organism, the life within them, will heal from the trauma and they'll develop a higher capacity to adapt. That's why we say when any planet Saturn's with gets better later in life, because we've had time to adapt and heal the trauma, okay? But in order to do that, we have to put ourselves in the healthiest environment we can, especially with the Saturn moon. If a person goes to negative environments where they get more stress, then they get a bigger backlog, right? Okay, so they have to really live healthily so they can heal faster. And that also includes the food they eat, because food is a stress on our consciousness and our system. If we had bad food, our consciousness and system are more stressed, okay? They also need to not bury it through drugs, alcohol, any other addictions, because burying it keeps the consciousness from working it through. What they need to do is find therapy, find people they can trust, confident, find warm places where they can be accepted, and start processing it. That can help it, okay? And remember that time is on their side, okay? And the important thing is not to do anything stupid while they wait for time to do the job.
Right.
By not doing damaging things that create more stress, they're going to get ahead a lot faster. So when I see these people really start to do well, is when they stop doing the damaging things.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like shocking to me how fast they'll fly. And I've seen people who are like alcoholics passing out on a weekly basis, having their careers work out and getting a good relationship going within a year of stopping that stuff. It's like amazing how fast things will change as soon as they stop the negative, which means stop the toxic stuff that the moon wants. Because moon's looking at sun and says, all those things that are bad for me are not all, but there's these bad things that I need, things that aren't mine that I want and hope and wish for. And so there's a lot of longings with the moon Saturn. Mm. There's the things that aren't theirs that they want. Mm. Okay, so they have to say, okay, the right thing, they have to understand, they have to change their minds to the right thing for my happiness is in my life. It's mine. I can have it. I don't have to kill Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so to get it. Right. I don't have to murder that guy who has that job to get my dream job, They have to realize the thing that's truly right for them is in their space, is in their grasp. And not that the one thing that would make my life work is unattainable. That's what Saturn Moon does. Because it's not that way. And the funniest thing is when a person heals the Moon Saturn is when they realize, oh, wow, I had it all along.
Right. Right. I think it froze again. Okay, it's back now. So it's more like
Okay,
really
it's back now.
accepting what you have and really not chasing after things which you think you could have.
Yeah, and accepting what you have that's good, that's nourishing, you know? If it's not, it's toxic, let it go.
Right.
Right? Because you also have to let go of the toxic stuff. So it's a complex thing because you got two planets hurting each other, two planets tripping the other one up at the same time. So it's a difficult one.
So with Saturn, when Saturn gets matured, then things get better for these people in some ways.
Okay, there's two steps that happen. First thing is the moon matures at 24, right?
Yeah.
So the moon, the mature moon is when a moon matures, we go, well, I grasp what I really need for my life to work. Okay. And it also is because it's when they learn how far they can adapt and still live as themselves. Okay, I can bend this much, but I can't bend that much. Okay.
Right.
All right. So when Saturn's with the moon, that maturation of the moon at 24 usually happens in a really tough way. It's a tough maturation. It can be so depressing, the person who wants to die sometimes. Okay. Because what's happening is they're not getting their needs met. They're trying to bend over backwards for things that will never serve them well. They usually have put themselves in a place that just is not, they will not get their needs met. And usually the things they're with at that point, they have to just get away from.
Right.
Usually not with the right things. It's usually a tough maturation where a lot of letting go is required, okay? Then the Saturn maturation at 36, so 35 to 36, 36 to 37, now the moon's with Saturn. Okay, usually at that point, in the moon maturation, they're usually just not getting their needs met. And they have to change themselves to start getting their needs met. It's often a time where the person realizes, I have to stop drinking. I have to stop being attracted to this kind of person. You know, they have to change themselves, okay? When the Saturn maturation comes, they have to let go of a lot of toxic things. They have to deal with the outside more. It's more about, I have to stop having these negative outside things in my life. I have to flush the toilet on this. I got to flush the toilet on that, okay? After they go through both those phases, they've done the inner work in the moon period where they're not going to be the kind of person who does that. And then they flush what they don't need, what's not healthy for them at the Saturn maturation. So at that point, they're more equipped. Okay. Saturn maturation is so important for everyone because it really becomes a time where a person learns what they can live without.
Right.
Because we all carry a lot of baggage that we could live without, you know, and if a successful Saturn maturation has a lot to do with learning what we can live without, what we don't have to waste our energy on. Because in not wasting our energy, we're going to live longer, yes, and have a better life. And Saturn helps us be happy by not wasting energy and resting and taking Saturdays off. Okay. Right. That's why God rested on the Saturn day, on the 7th day, on Saturday, because Saturn's job is to, I'm not going to do anything with that. Okay. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to go to sleep, ignore that. We're not supposed to ever do anything with Saturn. The reason Saturn has such a bad reputation is because he has 3 enemies, more than any other planet. So Saturn gets damaged more than any other planet. So all this stuff we hear about Saturn being a bad planet, it's not. It's because the person's using Saturn wrong. Using Saturn right is great. You don't do anything. It takes care of itself. Right. That's all you do with Saturn. You say, I ain't doing it. Right. I'm not talking about it. I'm not going to explain myself. Saturn is stupid. He's dumb. He can't talk.
Mm,
He's lame. He has no ideas. He's tired and has a broken leg, so he can't go anywhere either.
right.
That's sometimes you need to not go anywhere, not say anything, not think about it.
Mhm.
And that's when we have to use our Saturn. And the Moon Saturn person needs to learn when to do that.
Not taking any action on the Saturnian things, right, in their life.
Yeah. And just let it go. Just sleep on it. Yogananda had a great saying. He used to say, when you're really overwhelmed with stuff and things seem impossible, just go to bed. Chances are when you wake up, things will be a lot better.
Yeah,
And
because like when
that's Saturn.
you're sleeping, you're processing a lot, right? And then it won't even matter after.
Usually it just most things take care, so many things take care of themselves. But we stress ourselves out way more because Sun, Moon, or Mars are aspecting to some degree Saturn with Saturn, or Saturn's in their signs. And then Saturn gets starved. Saturn's the most commonly starved planet. So we're constantly worried about things that we ignored, which just take care of themselves. The thing with the Moon Saturn person, those things are the things that the Moon thinks they need more than anything else. So as soon as they realize the things they think they need the most are actually what they don't need, and instead of trying to make those things happen, just go to sleep on those things and ignore them, they'll find their lives working out so much better.
Mm.
And that's all they have to do. The more they need it, the more they have to say, I'm going to sleep on it. Because they're programmed to need what doesn't work for them, the things they don't need. And then going to sleep on those things, not wasting energy on those, they'll notice and be receptive to all the good things that are actually coming at them that can be fulfilling and can be nourishing.
So the key is to let go and just nourish yourself with positive things and self-love and self-care.
Yeah. And the important thing with the moon is, see, the moon is a planet that lets us be receptive to everything we need from the outside, but it doesn't change any of those things.
Mhm.
It's not a friend to Mercury. It's not a friend to Venus. It's an enemy to Venus, Saturn, Mercury, the outside planets.
Mm.
Okay, those are the planets that have to do with the things and dealing with the outside things. The moon's an enemy to all of them.
Mhm.
The minute the moon says, I need Venus, Mercury, or Saturn for happiness, you're screwed.
Right.
Okay. That's why Venus Moon conjunction is horrible for marriage.
Mm.
It makes you very miserable in your marriage life, for instance. So, but the moon is a friend to Jupiter, it's a friend to Mars, it's a friend to the sun, which are the self planets. See, the moon is designed to adapt yourself, not change the world, but to change you, to adapt you as an organism.
Mhm.
So when it's aspecting Mars, Jupiter, or sun, or the sun's in the moon sign, the moon is helping those planets adapt to work in this world. But when the moon's focused on those other things, it's, I want my needs met from this, this, and this thing that can never fulfill it. The moon's needs are meant to get fulfilled by us changing,
Right.
not by the outside giving us anything. See, you can take a life form and put in a completely different environment. And if you slowly move it into that environment, every 100 years, move it 20 miles closer to that environment or 10 feet closer to that environment. In a million years, that organism will be happy living in an environment it could never lived in, right?
Right.
That's how the moon is meant to change us. But a Saturn moon person is a penguin that was taken out of the South Pole and dropped in the Sahara Desert.
Mhm.
There's no way it can adapt to that.
Right.
But if we took a penguin and moved him to the southern coast of Argentina for a couple 100,000 years and then slowly moved him up Chile, up the coastline, we could eventually get him to the deserts of Mexico in a few million years, and he'd be happy in the deserts of Mexico.
Right.
And he'd be going, sliding down these sand dunes is even better than the snow, you know?
Right.
But that's how it's supposed to work. Slowly, life comes at a pace that we can adapt. But when Saturn's with the moon, it came at a pace that was too hard for anyone to adapt to. And they have no one to blame. They don't have themselves to blame. It's just the shit came harder than a living organism could handle it, but somehow they survived. They should commend themselves on staying alive, you know? But now they have to work and slowly catch up, evolve past that. And so you can say they're on a, they're evolving in one lifetime, what takes 1,000,000 years to evolve.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, the other thing that's going on is just predictive wise, right?
Right.
The nature of it is that there are certain conjunctions that for any ascendant will cause a good yoga.
Mhm.
Like Mercury-Venus conjunction for any ascendant will cause a good yoga, pretty much. And a Mars-Jupiter conjunction for any ascendant will cause some good yoga, either Viparit Raj Yoga or Raj Yoga, usually.
Yes.
Moon-Saturn for any ascendant does not create a good yoga, you know?
Okay. Mhm.
So if you have a Saturn-Moon conjunction, the dashas of the moon, the dashas of Saturn, the dasha of Moon-Saturn, the dasha of Saturn-Moon are not going to be yogas of success and wealth in most cases. Now, in certain cases, they can be, okay? Like a Moon-Saturn conjunction. Do you want to take it through the ascendants real quick for more predictive?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
All right. All right, so we get a Moon-Saturn conjunction for Aries. Saturn's 10th, Moon's 4th. 10th and 4th lords joined is a yoga for career success. All right, so they'll get some career success if it's an Aries, but there'll be a tremendous amount of stress. They won't get along with other people, and other people won't like them and will think they're a tyrannical, insensitive boss. Okay, so it won't be a happy period, but it can give some success career-wise. Okay. Okay. If you get for Taurus, you got Saturn's the 9th lord and the 10th lord's yoga karaka, right? So it can produce potentially good results, but now it's stuck with the 3rd lord. And so the 3rd lord's going to say, I'm going to try to make this yoga, make you trip while you're having your success. I won't succeed because the 9th lord is stronger than the 3rd lord when it comes to creating yogas. I won't be able to ruin your yoga, but I'm sure we're going to make it a lot more stressful than you expected.
Right.
Okay, but you still will have some success. So predictive wise for Taurus, the dasha of Saturn with the moon will not be as difficult. It'll have some rewards, and it'll just be not, oh wow, my yoga karaka is just giving me everything for free. Okay. All right. For a Gemini, you get the moon as the 2nd lord and the Saturn's the ninth lord. So now those two can give wealth. But the person's not going to want to share the wealth usually. Okay. And they'll also be upset when they have to share it because Saturn's also the 8th lord.
Right.
So to say, I think you actually have to share something like, I don't want to. Why do I have to give this money to my brother or whatever, someone. So there's this element of miserliness that, they could be miserly, but it can give some wealth. Okay. But when it gives the wealth, it also gives tension with other people somehow. Okay. Then we go to Cancer. Okay. Now we got the 1st and 8th lords together. So have big changes in life that you didn't expect for and are really stressful. Then you also got the 1st and 7th lords together, but they're enemies. So it means you're in a relationship, but that you can't maybe get out, but you need to get out, but it's not really healthy. So it's not an easy period for Saturn, or sorry, for Cancer rising either. It doesn't have anything good to give and gives a lot of big changes. It can cause the person to go from one relationship to the other one because the 8th lord influence of changing relationships, but it's not usually going to be into necessarily a better one. Okay. It's tough for Cancer. For Leo, you got the 12th lord and the 6th lord together, and the 12th lord and the 7th lord together. Well, that can get into hidden relationships that aren't satisfying. That can get into fatal attractions. That also can get into investing money, or let's say purchasing things that have a lot of problems with them and therefore a lot of disappointment with them. So not a good time to be getting loans or any of that stuff. Those can all go badly for the person. And again, if in any of these bad yogas, it's in Taurus or Gemini or Virgo, there can be some balance and it might not be too terrible, okay? But the point you're seeing for most ascendants, this is not going to give you a good time in the Saturn Moon or Moon Saturn dashas, right?
Right.
Okay. Then for Virgo rising, we get the 11th Lord with the 5th Lord. So that's wealth. The 6th Lord is also there. So the wealth will be over delays and with a lot of effort, but it can give wealth over time, wealth slowly, a slow increase of wealth. Okay. It's nicer for Virgo. Okay. Yeah. Also for Virgo, you got the evil 11th Lord with the 6th Lord. It's a mild Viparit yoga. Okay. So it can also give you some success. So Virgo and Taurus have the best time with it, which are the two earth signs we've covered so far. Okay. Libra, Saturn's the yoga karaka. Moon's the 10th Lord. So Saturn for Libra can give career success. It's not, the moon is not the best planet for Libra. So it's not going to be their best career period, but it can give some career.
Mm-hmm. I think it froze again a little bit. Okay, yeah.
Okay, sorry. So with Libra, you got some career possibilities, some success possibilities in your life. A position where you can earn more and possible. So one of the periods that can actually provide something is for Libra ascendant, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so now for Scorpio, we've got the 9th Lord Moon with the 3rd and 4th Lord Saturn, okay? This is a mixed batch, okay? We got the 9th Lord with the 4th Lord. Okay, that can give some fortunes in life. Then we got the 3rd Lord Saturn, it's gonna make it hard. It's gonna make the process difficult. The 3rd house is the house of things that just take more effort, basically. It takes a lot of effort. So you can say some prosperity through tremendous effort and through hardship. But at the same time, it almost always causes some disappointment with our siblings, our teammates, or our parents. So it's like a very mixed batch, okay? For Sagittarius, you got the 2nd and 3rd Lord with the 8th Lord. Okay. So for Sagittarius, you actually can have some unexpected good things happen. Okay, because we got the 3rd Lord with the 8th Lord. Those together can create some unexpected benefits. Okay. But the person will not trust them. It'll freak them out because Saturn Moon doesn't trust anything good, doesn't trust anything good. So they have to their lesson is is like, oh, it hurts to have something good happen, One of the funny things is in life, people always say, oh, this person has life so good and this person has life so good and their life, they've got money, I've got none. And I'm like, wait a minute. We all have exactly what we have in life, but we're going to learn our most painful lesson. For the person who has lots of money, they have to learn some painful things about having that money.
Right.
The person with power has to deal with himself and his ego is going to confront itself because it has power. The poor person's ego confronts itself because it's poor. God has set us all up for disaster to our ego, Okay, where were we? So Sagittarius has some benefits. Capricorn, we got the 1st and 7th and 2nd Lords, okay? But again, they're enemies. So just like Cancer, yes, in a relationship, yes, trying to make a relationship work, trying to take care of relationships, but a lot of difficulty in doing so, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of buttons being pushed, okay? But if people are sincere, they, just like with Cancer, they can work through a lot of heavy relationship issues during that time. It's more stable than it is for Cancer because Cancer, Saturn's the 8th Lord. Here it's a 2nd Lord, which is something you have to take care of. So Saturn will try to take care of things, but it'll often not be able to take care of things the way it thinks it should or wants to. So it has to redefine how to take care of their relationship. and also how the relationship is supposed to take care of them. For Aquarius rising, we got the sixth lord with the first and 12th lords. Okay. So this can be a very tough time of the person's worst habits, invest in your worst habits. Any addictions you have, anything you do that's sabotaging and damaging, the person's going to have to confront those and struggle out of those for Aquarius rising.
Right.
You bet. Possible health disorders will force the person to change their life. Basically, time where they have to improve themselves and their life on their behavior and way they're going about their lives. If not, sickness, loss of money, possibly imprisonment, if there's other bad factors, basically really getting in trouble somehow forces a person to go, wow, I have to start working on myself. Okay. Finally, for Pisces, we got the 11th and 12th lord with the 5th lord. So 5th and 11th lords can give some financial fortune always. But with the 12th lord, it's going places as fast as you can make it, of course. And it can also give a lot of loss in respect to things with children or other things the person loves. It's usually a period of some personal loss for Pisces. Not an easy period. So by its nature, again, there's some conjunctions, like I said, that for any lagna, they're going to give good yoga effects. Saturn Moon will give some decent effects for some lagnas. It's really best for earth signs, especially Virgo and Taurus. And then Libra is okay too.
Yeah.
But for most ascendants, it's going to be a tough dasha, Moon Saturn and Saturn Moon.
Right.
Okay. It's just how it is. The way you can tell which antardasha is going to be tougher, Saturn Moon going to be tougher or Moon Saturn going to be tougher, is look at the moon and see if it has any friends influence in it, Sun and Mercury,
right,
or if it's in the sign of friends.
okay.
If it is, its anti-dasha will have a little bit of power to it, okay?
Yeah.
But Saturn doesn't have any enemies. So he's never in an enemy, or sorry, Moon doesn't have any enemies. So he's never in an enemy sign.
Right.
He's never aspected by an enemy. So usually Saturn Moon will be better than Moon Saturn, okay?
Okay.
Okay, because Saturn has so many enemies, unless he's influenced by Mercury or Venus, or in the sign of Mercury and Venus,
right,
or in his own sign, his antardasha is going to be really tough. So you want him to have some of that, because otherwise he's going to be in Sun sign, Moon sign, Mars sign, 1/3 chance he's in an enemy sign. And then there's a 50% chance he's starved by somebody, or 30% chance he's starved by somebody else. He's already starved by the moon.
right,
So Sun and Mars aspecting to him will really hurt him. So usually the moon antar is better than the Saturn antardasha in this case. But those are things to look for to make sure. Usually that's the case.
right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ernst. That was wonderful insight on Saturn-Moon conjunction. So thank you for joining us today. And I hope everybody enjoyed the video. And if there's a question, please leave us a comment below. Thank you.
If I can say one more thing, for people who have this, what you want to, when you have this, it can feel like your life is never going to work.
Right.
See, one of the beauty of astrology, we have 7 planets.
Yes.
And each of them are a step along the path of our life. The sun, the moon. And after that, we have 5 more planets, right?
Yes.
All those 5 planets can be in a functional state. But your Saturn moon is not letting you get there.
Right.
Which so as soon as a person works a little on their Saturn moon, all of a sudden, all this functionality that they have that they don't even have to work on is available to them.
Wonderful.
So imagine having these up to 5 good things locked in a box somewhere. And the key is Saturn moon. And see, from their perspective, they're just Saturn moon. There's nothing good in my life. They don't know what's in that locked box.
Right.
So soon, the beautiful thing is, I say, as soon as people start working with their Saturn moons a little bit, it's like, wow, the surprises you get, because there's all this good stuff just waiting to come as soon as you let it come by not keeping the trash,
Right.
in your life, basically, and being open to it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, namaste.